Not anymore. Hospitals have their fair share of ghost stories, but this one? This one isn't just a story. It's something I lived through, something that still creeps into my dreams, something that makes me dread the silence of an empty hallway. I've been a night shift nurse for 17 years, and I've seen things that could rattle even the most seasoned of us. But what happened in Ward 6? That changed everything. Ward 6 was shut down 3 years ago. They blamed it on budget cuts, but we knew better. It happened after Mr. Avery died. He was supposed to be discharged. His vitals were stable, his chart clear. There was no reason for going to cardiac arrest at 3:15 a.m. But he did. And when the code team arrived, something was wrong. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling, mouth slightly ajar as if frozen mid-scream. The monitor still beeped, showing a flat line, but his body wasn't cold. His skin felt warm, too warm, as if something was still inside, clinging to life. But he was gone. We moved on, or tried to. It started small, a call light flickering in an empty room, the scent of antiseptic mixed with something metallic, something rotten, lingering just a little too long. Patients murmuring about the man by the window, even though their blinds were drawn and their doors were locked at night. A security guard quit after reviewing footage of Ward 6. He wouldn't say what he saw, just muttered something about watching eyes and left without taking his last paycheck. And then, the intercom started playing whispers. It was 2:37 a.m. I remember the exact time because I had just finished my rounds and was filling out paperwork at the nurses' station. The overhead intercom crackled to life, and a voice, soft and barely above a whisper, said my name. Claire. I froze, the pen slipping from my fingers. I glanced at my coworker, Teresa, but she had headphones in, scrolling through her phone. The voice came again, more insistent this time. Claire, you let me die. A chill ran down my spine. I forced myself to stand, to walk to the intercom panel, pressing the button to respond. This is Claire. Who's on the line? Silence. I turned to Teresa. Did you hear that? She pulled out one earbud, eyebrows raised. Hear what? The intercom crackled again. And then I heard it. Not my name this time, but a slow, wet breathing. The sound of someone choking, struggling, gasping for air. I slammed the intercom off. It didn't stop. The breathing echoed from down the hallway, coming from Ward 6. The doors had been locked for months, but I swear I saw a shadow move behind the frosted glass panel. A long, distorted figure, shifting unnaturally. I backed away, my hands shaking. That was the night I checked the security footage, and that was the night I wished I hadn't. At 3:15 a.m., the exact time of Mr. Avery's death, the cameras in Ward 6 flickered. The feed turned to static before stabilizing, showing something impossible. The bed in room 612, the very bed Mr. Avery had died in, was occupied. The sheets shifted as if something unseen was moving beneath them. And then the figure sat up. I couldn't see a face, only the shape of a man, hunched and unnatural, tilting its head in jerky, unnatural motions. The monitor beside the bed blinked to life, reading a steady pulse of 72 BPM. But there was no one there. Then the figure turned, facing the camera, and it smiled. I yanked the plug from the monitor, my heart pounding in my ears. Teresa rushed in, asking what was wrong, but I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the screen, but it was gone. The bed was empty. The sheets were still. I put in my transfer request the next day. They shut down Ward 6 a week later. But sometimes late at night, when I pass that hallway, I still hear it. The slow, wet breathing, the intercom crackling to life, the whisper of my name drifting through the silence. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see a figure at the end of the hall, watching me. I don't talk about Ward 6. None of us do. And now, a huge thank you to all my amazing viewers for joining me in these bone-chilling stories. If you're new here and enjoyed getting chills down your spine, smash that like button and subscribe to venture deeper into the shadows with us. Each like fuels the darkness, bringing more chilling, haunting stories to light. Now, steady your nerves as we cruise into our next horrifying story. This isn't easy to tell. I don't even know where to start. There's so much to it, but I'll try. It's about a colleague of mine. Her name was Lily. She was the kind of nurse you'd always want around. Quiet, diligent, reliable, always there for her shift, never complained. but there was something off about her. Not from the start, no, at least not immediately. It was like a slow, creeping change, so subtle you could almost dismiss it, but I couldn't. Lily always worked the late shifts. You know, those shifts no one really wants to take, where the hospital quiets down and the atmosphere turns eerie. But Lily, she thrived in it. She was the kind of nurse who would sit with you through long, sleepless nights, never once looking at the clock. But something started shifting in her, almost like she was fading. It wasn't obvious at first, just small things, little details. Her skin, at first it looked healthy, glowing even, but then it started losing that warmth. It became so pale, almost translucent, like she hadn't seen daylight in weeks. Her eyes, too, they weren't the same, darker, almost hollow. It was subtle, but once I noticed it, I couldn't ignore it. She didn't talk much either, not like she used to. She'd stare off, her eyes vacant, and when she did speak, her voice had this strange, almost distant quality to it. It was like she wasn't really there. I remember one night in particular. It was around 2 a.m., the hallway lights flickering in their usual half-hearted attempt at brightness. Lily had just finished her rounds, and I noticed something different about her. She was walking slower than usual, dragging her feet like she was too tired to lift them. She didn't respond when I asked if she was okay, just gave me this vacant smile, like it wasn't really her smiling at all. From that night on, it got worse. I don't know how to explain it, but I began feeling uneasy around her, like she was slipping further away from the world she once knew. Her movements got slower. She started getting forgetful, missing doses of medication, making mistakes she'd never make before. And the worst part? She started coming in earlier, staying later. It was like she was becoming more and more obsessed with the night shifts. She seemed to need them, as though she couldn't let them go. Then one night, something strange happened. Lily began visiting the basement. Now, if you've been around this hospital long enough, you know the basement is a place no one really talks about. There are old rooms down there, rooms that haven't been used in decades, dark corners that are usually locked or sealed off. No one really knows what's down there, but rumors always circulated. Some said it was a storage area for old equipment. Others whispered about things, worse than that. Things that happened long before we ever worked there. Lily, though, she started going down there every night. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was just trying to get away from the pressure of the wards. But after a while, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She'd slip away, just as the night shift was winding down, quietly disappearing down those cold, dark stairs. No one knew what she was doing, but I couldn't ignore the look in her eyes when she came back up. It was like something had changed in her. She was more distant, more detached, her behavior even stranger. I asked her once why she was going down there, and she just smiled at me, this empty, almost eerie smile. "It's peaceful," she said. "It's where I find the truth." That was all she said, and she wouldn't talk about it again. But after that, it felt like she was a different person, like whatever she was encountering down there was pulling her in. I don't think she ever came back the same. Then, one night, Lily just vanished. I don't know how else to describe it. One moment she was there, and the next she was gone. Just gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication that anything was wrong. Her locker was empty the next morning. Her personal items? Gone. The uniform she always wore? Still hung in the back of the closet where she left it. It was like she'd just walked out and never came back. No one heard her leave, and no one saw her. It was like she had simply disappeared into thin air. At first, I thought maybe she just needed a break. Maybe she was tired, or maybe she just wanted to disappear for a while. But deep down, something told me that wasn't it. I'm telling you this because after she left, it didn't feel like she really left. I'd be walking through the halls at night, alone as usual, and I'd feel it. The same feeling I got when she was around. That sensation, the hair standing on the back of your neck, like someone was right behind you. It was subtle, like a shift in the air, and for a long time I told myself it was just my imagination. But then things started happening. I started hearing things. Small noises at first, footsteps, soft, measured steps, like someone walking down the corridor in those old, heavy nurse's shoes. the ones we used to wear before the hospital updated the uniforms. I would turn around expecting to see Lily, but there would be no one there. I wasn't the only one who noticed it either. Some of the other nurses heard it too. Late at night, they'd mention it in passing, the sound of soft footsteps echoing down the hall, the creak of a door slowly opening. But the worst part? It was always followed by this sound, a lullaby. It wasn't the kind of lullaby you'd hear on a children's show. No, it was old-fashioned, haunting. You could feel it in your bones, a soft, whispering melody that would drift through the air, lingering in your mind long after it had faded. It wasn't just my mind playing tricks on me. I could tell because it was Lily's lullaby. I had heard it before, a lullaby she would hum under her breath when she thought no one was listening. It was her lullaby. That was when I started to lose it. There were nights when I'd be sitting at the nurse's station alone, the silence pressing in on me, when I would feel it, the presence. I'd feel her there, standing just behind me, watching. I'd turn around quickly, expecting to see her, but no one would be there. It was like she was always just out of reach, standing there in that old-fashioned uniform, her dark eyes staring straight through me. It wasn't just me anymore. Nurses would talk about it in hushed voices. They'd joke about her ghost haunting the halls, but I could tell they were scared too. And as much as we tried to pretend everything was fine, we all knew something was wrong. I'm not sure what happened to Lily. Maybe she was never meant to leave the hospital. Maybe she chose to stay, for some reason we'll never understand. But I know one thing for sure. Sometimes, in the dead of night, when everything is quiet and still, I feel her, just out of sight, just behind me. And I know, she's still there. And maybe she always will be. But I'm convinced it has something to do with the basement. Whatever she found down there, whatever she saw, it changed her. And I think maybe it's calling her back, calling her to stay, forever. There are things we're not supposed to know, things we're meant to ignore, to let fade into the background, because once you know them, once you really understand, there's no going back. What I found, what I uncovered, was one of those things. It was during a routine check, a simple task, just like any other. It was my turn to check the storage rooms, the ones that are tucked away in the corners of the building, out of sight where no one ever goes. Most of the time, it's just shelves full of old equipment, discarded items that haven't been used in years. But this time was different. The room I was supposed to check was the furthest one, the last door at the end of the hall. I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary, just more of the same. But as I approached, I noticed something strange. The door was cracked open, just enough for me to slip through. That in itself wasn't unusual. The staff here is busy, and sometimes things get left ajar. But for some reason I felt a pull, a strange, almost magnetic force that made me hesitate for a second before pushing the door fully open. Inside, it was exactly what I'd expected. Dusty, dimly lit, filled with old, unused equipment. Broken carts, forgotten boxes of supplies, forgotten relics of a hospital long past its prime. But there, in the middle of the floor, was something that made my breath catch in my throat. Symbols. Symbols that looked like they had been drawn hurriedly, carelessly, and in what I can only describe as blood. I froze, unable to look away. They were sprawling, disorganized, almost chaotic, but each mark seemed deliberate, like it had been placed with intent. My heart raced as I stepped closer. The shadows from the half-burned candles scattered around the symbols danced erratically on the walls, casting shapes that made the room feel alive. Alive in a way I can't explain. The air grew heavier, and I felt a strange pull toward the center of the symbols, like the room itself was reaching out to me, waiting for me to step into its grasp. It was then I noticed the journal. It was tucked away in the corner of the room, half hidden behind a stack of old equipment. It looked worn, like it had been there for a long time. I picked it up without thinking, feeling an odd urgency in my hands. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded in places, but the words were still legible. The journal had belonged to someone who had worked here, someone long gone. As I flipped through the pages, the words seemed to pull me in, making the room feel even colder, darker. The entries spoke of something unsettling, something I couldn't quite grasp. It was about rituals, rituals designed to contain spirits, spirits that were never meant to rest. I had to force myself to read each word because, with every sentence, I could feel something pressing against my chest, like it was trying to stop me from understanding. The rituals didn't banish the spirits. No, they trapped them. Trapped them here, in the walls of the hospital, in the basement, in the very foundation of the building. The rituals were meant to bind the spirits, to keep them contained, but they could never send them away. The writer spoke of them like they were alive, like they were constantly watching, always hungry, never resting. That's when I understood. What I'd stumbled onto was no mere superstition. These spirits, they weren't looking for peace. They weren't just lingering in the background, waiting for release. No. They were looking for something much more insidious. They were looking for company. They wanted to be seen, wanted to be remembered. I couldn't finish reading. My hands were shaking, the words blurring together as my mind reeled. I could feel the temperature drop, the oppressive weight of the air pressing in on me. I don't know what came over me, but I had to get out of there. I dropped the journal, not even caring where it fell, and stumbled backward toward the door. But the moment I turned to leave, I could feel it, the presence in the room. It wasn't just the symbols, it wasn't just the ritual. There was something in the room with me, something that hadn't been there before. I slammed the door shut behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. But even as I stood there, trying to catch my breath, I could still feel it. The heaviness, the pull. I knew I couldn't stay in that room any longer, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it had already marked me in some way. That whatever was inside the walls, inside the basement, had already begun to follow me. In the days that followed, things started to happen. Small things at first, the flickering of the lights, the sound of doors creaking open in the dead of night when no one was around, the whispers, always just out of earshot, always seeming to call my name. And then the dreams started. At first they were vague, disconnected, nothing more than fragments, but over time they became clearer. The symbols, the basement, the rituals. But the most terrifying part of the dreams wasn't what I saw, it was what I felt. There was always something behind me, breathing down my neck, a presence just out of sight, just beyond reach. I would wake up in cold sweats, my heart racing, and it would take everything in me to convince myself it was just a dream. But it wasn't just in my sleep. It was happening when I was awake too. I've tried to tell myself it's all in my head, that the old journal, the symbols, the rituals, they were just remnants of a past that no one needed to remember. But deep down, I know that's not true. Whatever was trapped in that basement, whatever was contained by those rituals, is still here. It's still waiting. I don't know how much longer I can ignore it, how much longer I can pretend I'm not being drawn into it. But I'll tell you one thing. If you ever come across a room like that, a room that pulls you in, don't go. Don't even look. Because once you do, once you step into that room and feel that pull, it's only a matter of time before you realize that the dead aren't really dead, and they'll never stop looking for company.